Dicejunkies. I'm Tim.
I'm Roger.
And today we are going to do our review on Legendary, a deck building game. So, Legendary is a bit of an older game at this point. It actually came out in 2012. It is produced by Upper Deck, and the original game, the designer is Marvel, for the most part.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool. Upper Deck is known for doing like trading cards and different things along those lines, so they have the rights to Marvel anyway. There was years ago, like back in the 90s, they did a actual Marvel trading cards.
I actually had almost all of them.
Yeah, they were amazing, and you get the same quality, same style of art that you would see in the comics because of that, which is really neat. The game itself says it's for people of 14 and up. I think you could probably go down a little bit on that.
Yeah.
There's nothing violent in this game, not really. There's nothing too terribly complex. It's more of just whether or not you can read the cards well and understand what they do.
Yeah.
So that's got a little bit of give on that for sure. Okay.
And I'm cool.
All right.
That makes sense.
Yep.
So
then you
now
go ahead and
you're-
draw your 6.
Yep.
And
With
I
the that
will.
card.
All right, Doom by Legion.
Oh boy.
Does it have an?
Only if you get ready to fight, it has an ability. If you get
What's
ready
its
to fight.
ability when you fight it? Because I'm probably going to fight it.
All right. Look at the top 2 cards of your deck.
Okay.
It's there. Knock out one of them and put the other back.
Oh.
So that's the drawback
And
of
the
fighting.
knockouts go in them.
Yeah.
That could also be a good one.
Could be.
Because if you have a wound,
Bang.
then
Right.
that
Okay.
will work. Unfortunately, I don't have a wound, but it does thin my deck out some. It is a game for 1 to 5 players. There is a solo mode, which is kind of neat. Although, which we'll get into a little bit with the setup and takedown of this game. I don't know if you would want to play it by yourself. It's a little intense on that.
It's a process.
And it says that it is between 30 and 60 minutes to play the game. So I'll give it that. We've played it twice now. First time, not really knowing what we were doing, learning as we're going, as we are prone to do. It took us about an hour and a half. The second time that we played took us about an hour, but definitely give yourself at least 20 to 30 minutes to set up the game and to
Take it down.
Does have a pretty good organizational system on its own. Which we'll talk about here in just a second, but it's a lot of cards, guys. With it being a lot of cards, the game, its MSRPs, the list price is about $60. It's $59.99. However, most places you can find it as low as $40. So check your local hobby shop, check your local game shop, Amazon, all your big box stores that have these types of board games. Probably be able to get it for about $40.
Yeah. It's an older game, so it's probably not going to be at your local big box stores. It'll be more in your hobby shops.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
may be able to find it at like some of the bigger bookstores.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
But definitely your local game shop.
Yeah.
So let's get into the actual review. So let's start off with design, which we've talked a little bit about already. As far as the art style, the theme, comic books, superheroes. It's all there for you. The art is beautiful. Most of the art is done by the actual original artists, pulled directly from the comics, which is cool. The design for the box, it is well organized.
Yeah.
But there's so much stuff that it's just kind of hard to put everything back easily.
It does have dividers for the game itself, for the expansions. However, you have to actually write down everything and organize it in your own way. And it is a lot of micromanaging at first. Once you get it in there, I mean, if you have your own organizational factor to it, it may work out for you a little better. But the fact that you have to handwrite everything is a little tedious.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm definitely one of those types of people that as soon as I get a new game, even if I'm not going to be playing it, I like to break it open, rip off that plastic, go ahead and pop out anything, go ahead and organize it on my own.
Yep.
We've talked about some of the organizers that we use. So that it leads, your first setup is going to take a little bit longer, but once you get everything organized, it goes pretty well.
Yeah.
So I think we both agreed on that for design. We both give it a 3.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things that I will piggyback on this, and you mentioned it before, is that Upper Deck used to make the cards that you could collect. The card quality on those cards was far superior than these.
That is true.
These cards will show wear much faster. They're a very thin card stock. The art is beautiful. If you're into comic books, you love it. It's a beautiful design, but the card quality is a little missing.
It is, and I mean the game is meant to be played multiple times. Now the cool thing, which we'll talk about here in a second, about the different decks that you add together, the different hero decks, the different villain decks that you combine together to make your hero and villain decks separately. That adds to the lifespan, because you're not going to play with the same ones every single time.
Yep.
Yeah, of course you're going to have your favorites, and they're going to show more wear and tear, but for the most part, it's going to get a good randomness to it.
Absolutely.
So, did you enjoy the game?
Yeah, I enjoyed it. It's definitely going to be one that, if someone said, "Hey, do you want to play this?" Yeah, I'll play it with you.
Yep.
Because it's going to need you and the village to put it all together and to take it all down.
That is true.
So, yeah, but the game is fun. I really enjoyed it. The different combination of decks adds to the enjoyability. You can have different combos. One of the things that I did find fascinating on the second playthrough is learning that a lot of the different decks do indeed combo and work well together.
They do.
Even if you would think that they normally wouldn't with those types of characters, they do.
Yeah, no, and that was cool. The first time that we played it, there was kind of a mix of just like, who's your favorite character? And this one, we almost themed it off of who we were fighting. We were fighting Mr. Sinister this time. So we went with mainly X-Men, and X-Men combo off of each other like crazy.
Yeah, it worked out really well.
So it was cool that we picked it was enjoyable that we picked a theme, and it worked well in the game.
Yeah.
I think it was built to do it that way, which we can talk about in mechanics in a little bit. But so on a scale of 0 to 5, how would you rate enjoyability?
I'd rate it a 3.
Yeah. It's definitely one, I give it a 3 as well. It is definitely one where it's fun to play. The kind of minor detractors of, just the tediousness of setting it up, the tediousness of breaking it down. And we'll get to it in replayability here in a little bit, but kind of, when you play it, you're doing the same thing every time. So multiple playthroughs may be a little bit less enjoyable. As far as pacing goes, it has a fairly decent pacing. There's not a lot of required interaction that's really talked about in the game between the players, but it is cooperative. So if you're playing with people that are used to playing cooperative games, they'll know to talk to each other about, hey, I'm actually building a Colossus deck. Or, I see that you're building more stuff with Wolverine. I'm not going to buy these Wolverine cards down here at the bottom.
Yeah.
And it works out pretty well doing it that way. It doesn't, even though there's nothing for you to do during your turn, when it's not your turn, that it really just kind of, it doesn't feel like it takes too terribly long.
Yeah. It goes by pretty quick, and then when those you get the combo cards that work really well. It's just like any deck builder.
Yep.
It takes time to play it all out because you have to lay it out in a certain way. But that's one of the enjoyable factors. And it does get back to the point where you mentioned before, where it's like, hey, I'm building this deck. Because you are working together. And at the end of the day, it is who wins and gets the most points by defeating the villains.
Yep.
But you are working together. So by taking other cards that other people may need just because you want them, it hurts the entire team.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely. And I mean, so that kind of leads us to the mechanics of the game.
Yep.
And as we've mentioned a couple of times here, Legendary is a deck building game. It is called the deck building game. And the entire mechanics behind it is that with other deck building games, it's the same. You start off with a small pre-made deck. You use those cards to either attack things or to do actions or to buy other cards to fill out your deck. Doing that, it's going to be random flips from a particular row to choose what you're actually building in your deck. And you eventually play through until either the villain wins by completing his scheme, or you win by defeating the villain.
Yep.
Which is really cool. Flip the next card, please.
You're not gonna rescue it.
Don't be a twist. It's not a twist.
Hand
It's a
ninja.
hand ninja. That's good. All right, so I'm gonna start off by discard.
Actually, I might just get rid of my wounds. I got 2 of them.
I'm gonna play a wound first, and then I'm going to play this bishop, which gives me 3 attack, and then I'm going to play this bishop, discard the top 4 cards of my deck, and I get any of their attack power, so I get +1 attack power. However, because I did play an X-Men beforehand, I get to KO any number of these cards. So I'm definitely getting rid of that wound. And I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the shield agent as well. So on this one, and I tried to temper this because it is a little bit of an older game. I tried to temper my score for this one, but I gave it a 3 out of 5. Other games have come out with better ways of doing things than it shows in Legendary. There's the scheme twist, for example. So it starts off with, depending on which scheme you choose, most of them, there are about 8 twists that you add into the villain deck.
Yep.
And on everybody's turn, you flip over a card in the villain deck. If it's a scheme twist, you add it to the scheme pile. And with most of them, if you pull all of the schemes out of the deck, then you lose.
Yep.
And the fact is, you shuffle them in before you start drawing anything.
Yep.
So it's a low chance, but there's a very, it's possible that you can draw the top 8 cards as the schemes. Now, it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
The likelihood of that's going to happen is very low. But it did happen in our first playthrough.
Where we drew 6 schemes in the
6
first 30
schemes
minutes.
In the first 30 minutes of the game.
Mm-hmm.
And we wound up losing because of the scheme.
Yep.
So I don't necessarily think that we lost due to poor play choices or
No.
anything like that. We just ran out of time.
The randomness of the deck, and that's something that does go into the mechanics of deck building games.
It does.
And a lot of the deck building games that we've reviewed, I've never really left a 3 for that fact, is that it can be an instant loss or a very quick loss, and it's kind of demoralizing because you don't get the full experience of the game.
And if something like that happens, it is going to, drop you down for your enjoyability, is going to drop down replayability of it. But in all honesty, saying all that, the game is solid.
Yeah.
The point cost, the attacks, the way things combo off of each other, it is very, very well balanced.
Mm-hmm.
And even with those detractors, it still, works out pretty good. So you would rate it
A 3.
a 3
Absolutely.
as well. Perfect. So when we talked about the replayability of this game, let's go ahead and rate it.
So as far as replayability for me, it would be a 3. If
Yep.
someone had the game and they wanted to play it, I would absolutely want to play it. I would actually, have to help them set it up
Yeah.
and then help them take it down. That's something that you have to keep in mind. But I would definitely play it again because I'm interested in seeing the other combinations of cards that can work together and see how the other villains actually play out.
Yeah, and originally when we were talking about our review before we played it the second time, you had a little bit higher rating for the replayability. What
I
brought
did.
it down?
It brought it down from the fact that it does have still the randomness, the length of time that it takes to take down the game, to put up the game, and to set it up, to take it down. That's kind of what took down some of the replayability because it's almost like, yes, I want to play Legendary, and then you get that exhaustion, like, okay, I've got to set it up.
Yep.
And then we got to take it down. Because, again, it takes a village
And
to do it.
When I was thinking about it, I actually rated it a little bit lower. I rated it in final. I gave it a 3 as well. because originally I was going to go with a 2 because of things like that, because of the randomness that just really, it can kill you super fast. The setup is tedious. The breakdown is tedious unless you're just a jerk and don't feel like helping
Yeah.
the person that actually has the game. But in playing it the second time, I was able to see how like it really is fun
Yeah.
when you have a team that works well together, when you have all the characters that work together. Plus, thinking about it, this is a little bit of an older game.
Yeah.
It has a ton of expansions.
Oh,
And yeah, and the cool thing about the expansions is, and none of them really take away from, they don't change the mechanics enough to take away from some of the stuff that we've talked about previously, but it does add in new things. There's the, there's a Fantastic Four expansion where you're fighting against Galactus, and Galactus is super powerful, so you have to have one of each type of card before you can even really do any damage,
Yeah.
or just put out a ton of damage.
Absolutely.
So adding those in really changes the flow of the game, and it makes you have to think about how everybody's going to play together. And I think
Yep.
that adds to the replayability of it. So
Yeah.
I bumped mine up to a 3. So in total, this is another strange one. We agreed.
Yep.
So we don't have to do an average on this one. The total that we give for Legendary is 12 out of 20. So again, this is another game that you definitely need to try.
Yeah.
It's not a run out and buy immediately. It's definitely a game that, as you've said multiple times, it takes a village. Probably one person out of your general group of players could buy it. Maybe the rest of you can, chip in on some expansions.
Sure.
But it's not something that if you owned it, I would want to own it as well.
Yeah.
I would probably only play it if I'm going to be playing it with the same group of people.
Yep.
So, with that, guys, this is Legendary. 12 out of 20. Still would, it would hit some lower level creatures.
Yeah, absolutely.
Definitely, depending on how many bystanders are there, it'll definitely knock the stew out of Mr. Sinister.
Yeah.
But the other cool thing about Legendary, and I wanted to talk about this because Upper Deck has done it, there is multiple variants on Legendary.
Oh, yeah.
There's a Buffy the Vampire Slayer, a Firefly, an Aliens, a Predator, even more than I just cannot think of right now. They did a DC version of Legendary.
Mm-hmm.
If you're more into DC than you are with Marvel, there's a ton of different types of Legendary games that
They
you can
have
play.
a villains version of the Marvel.
They do, which is really cool because you get to play as the villains versus the superheroes.
Yep.
So that's a really neat thing, and it's almost like a brand new game instead of an expansion.
Yep.
So, but yeah, guys, I hope you enjoyed the review. Check out Legendary by Upper Deck. And, be sure to subscribe, like us on Facebook, Instagram, see us on every Thursday on Twitch. And, be sure to check us out on Twitter as well. That's where you're going to learn about what we're going to be playing next, what we're going to be reviewing next. Like I said, subscribe so that you can be the first ones to know when we have a new review that comes up.
Yep.
Hit us up on comments. Let us know if you like Legendary from playing it. Let us know your favorite version that you have for playing Legendary. And just remember, guys, just keep playing games.
Yep. Have a good one.